Also, there were a lot of programs under DCCE that had nothing to do with DEI.
People on the left and people on the right like DEI, but the DEI that they think that they believe in is like a different DEI than the other person.
And I really want to commend like the people that we were talking to, because and like the groups that I saw that were talking, because it didn't seem like there were any like major like violent disagreements. Like people were taking the time to listen to each other, to understand each other. And I think that's a really good thing to encourage on campus. Yeah. What do you think about the Ron DeSantis banning like social media for 14-year-olds?
I support that actually. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the second episode. And in this episode, we'll be discussing 3 topics. The UT Austin DEI ban, the DCCE layoffs that happened. We'll be discussing the Israel-Palestine topics related to the events that happened at UT, I think yesterday. And we'll be discussing some news in Florida related to abortion and how that might impact the national politics.
Yeah, so I guess to get started, we'll talk about the DEI ban. I think it's pretty sad to see that like these people are being laid off without any forewarning or offering of a job back. In the email that Jay Hartzell sent out, he said that they'd be given the opportunity to reapply for jobs, which is obviously not ideal. You know, you'd want to see them be offered a job or get into a job since their job wasn't taken away for any like specific performance issues or because they weren't meeting the requirements of their job, but because of a state law. I think that's probably the most unjust thing to come out of this, is the fact that people are losing their jobs for no other reason than because the governor and the state legislature said so.
Yeah, I agree. We probably, just to review like what happened. So basically there's this organization called DCCE. I think it stands for, what does it stand for?
Division of Campus and Community Engagement.
Yeah. So basically that group has to be defunded as part of like the SB 17 Texas bill that passed. So like that group encompasses a lot of like DEI related organizations. So like people of like different communities have like their subset group within that like unit. And so like a lot of DCCE programs, which I think they include like different groups, they include scholarships, they include like certain staff for like certain people. They're either going to be reallocated to different departments because it doesn't want to be under like the diverse DEI umbrella anymore, or they're just going to be defunded completely, which will lead to like the staff of that specific program being fired. And I think what is it, about like 80 to 100 people are being fired. Yeah. So yeah, I do agree. It's pretty sad. Like putting aside the merits of the DEI ban and all of that stuff, there are like, whether we like it or not, or however it's implemented, there are groups that people enjoy being on campus, and it helps them conduct themselves in a successful way on campus.
Yeah, it helps them like find new friends and help them meet new people. I think probably a lot of people had friends that they met through these different organizations that were in their communities. Like I know some people that went to a not super diverse like high school or middle school, and then when they come to college, they're suddenly exposed to this wide range of diversity that we have at UT, and they're able to meet people within their culture. And I think that was probably a really powerful part of the DCCE programs. Also, there were a lot of programs under DCCE that had nothing to do with DEI, like environmental sustainability programs, which I think
they're probably reallocated.
Probably reallocated to other organizations, which is good. And I guess most notably, the Multicultural Engagement Center was shut down yesterday, and all the organizations in it were also shut down.
Yeah, like just to reiterate on that, like I do think it's pretty valuable to have diversity on campus because like one of the things that kind of makes me hesitant to do away with all of the DEI is the fact that obviously like meritocracy and hiring based on like your skills and stuff, it should be the priority, and like I don't think anyone really disagrees with that, even most advocates of DEI. But there's probably like a secondary thing to be gained in like your ability to be socialized into society, and like your exposure to like other people of different beliefs and stuff when it comes to DEI. So like if you have a workplace with like people of like the same
ideas, same beliefs,
you can say same resume, right? The same exact resume, but you have like 5 people from like different countries, different religions, different backgrounds, and then you have 5 people of the same, like kind of the same like group of people. like the fact that like those other 5 people come from so many different places, it not only socializes each of those people to those other cultures, meaning like if I meet like a Jewish person, and then I go like in college, right, and then I go to the workplace, or I go to like some place and I meet like another Jewish person, I'll have an understanding of how they've lived their life at like a broad level because I've met a Jewish person before, right? So it's kind of the same concept. I think it's an important socializing force for people on campus.
Yeah. Plus, I've sure there's a lot of studies that show that DEI is beneficial in the workplace, not just for like the whole social aspect, but also for an economic aspect. Like having people with different ideas and different beliefs in the same room leads to more innovation and leads to like bouncing off each other and generating new thoughts. Because if everyone's thinking the same, things are just going to keep being the same. And maybe if your company's going well, that's a good thing. But every not all companies like stay on the growth train forever, and you have to change course. You have to find new ways of doing things, and I think that's where diversity really comes into play as a benefit to people all over the world.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like a criticism I would have with the whole DEI movement is like a DEI, like people on the left and people on the right like DEI, but the DEI that they think that they believe in is like a different DEI than the other person. So for example, like it's like someone who's like very socially left wing. Diversity to them is probably like having friends of different races, having friends of different like sexualities. But like if we were to poll like what are like the political beliefs of all these people, they may be diverse in their own like culture and like lifestyle, but are they like ideologically diverse? Like from like just speaking anecdotally, I would say like people tend to group themselves who are on the left predominantly with people who are on the left, and they don't like diversity to them doesn't include ideological diversity. Yeah. So like when we look at all of these DEI bills, when we look at all of these other movements from the left that come into diversity, they never include ideological diversity, and that's one of the talking points the right uses to bash DEI, right? Because like they're only diverse insofar as everyone believes the same things that they do on a political level.
It's like only skin deep. It's like only what's on the outside, not like what you believe on the inside.
Yeah. And then on the right, like diversity, like they really only care about diversity of thoughts. So like a lot of people on the right, if you're like a right wing person on this campus, there's no way you don't have any left wing friends, right? Just because of the overall politics of this campus and of Austin, Texas is pretty left wing, right? So like people on the right maybe are more accepting of ideological diversity, but then they lack the other like left wing DEI. So like they might have all friends with like the same race, the same culture, and they may not have a lot of exposure to people of other cultures, or their exposure to people of other cultures might be from like media or like some other like form that might dilute their impression or create like some subconscious expectation when you do meet someone like that.
I think overall DEI on campus, there's also new studies coming out from other places. Like in the UK, they had an examination of DEI, and it like showed that a lot of DEI often doesn't have like the greatest I don't know how to say like definitions when it's laid out initially. But I think that Austin did a good job of trying to give students the power to define what DEI was for them. And I think another like part of the DCCE being discontinued or defunded is the fact that the funding that went to these orgs and went to these students on campus to give them a space probably will not go to them in the same degree as before. Like I know personally, as part of the Hindu Student Association, we applied to the DCC for funding. I'm sure many other orgs did in order to raise money for events to put on campus. And now that that source of money is gone, we of course have to like supplement from other areas. But I think it was probably an important part of many orgs like fundraising for events. I think that's I want to see what UT Austin does about that in the future after this bill has been passed.
Yeah, that's true. I like overall thoughts on this bill. I guess like from my side is like I do think it's a bit too heavy-handed. It's I'd say like when it comes to using DEI to hire people from into the college, like
Like admissions?
Yeah, it's easy. I can be more sympathetic to wanting to remove that in like
Mm-hmm.
some forms, but at the end of the day, I don't think that it's really practical to like actually remove that, right? So like let's say there's like an underrepresented minority on campus, and you're trying to have more of that minority in the school, and you remove the DEI portion of that would maybe have helped them to recruit to campus.
Mm-hmm.
There'll be other elements that you can incorporate into an application that will basically account for the diversity, but it just won't be in stated as diversity, right?
Yeah.
So like let's say somebody goes through a lot of hardship, they're gonna be they're gonna write down on their essay. They're gonna have a bunch of extenuating circumstances on their application, and then that would be used to help them get into the college. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
if they have a bit lower grades, but they had some other circumstances to account for that, that would help them get into the
Yeah.
college. And then let's say if there's a minority group that disproportionately is negatively affected, then like that this would apply to all of those people, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
in effect, you're doing the same thing, but so that's why I don't really see like these kind of bills are more to aesthetically posture
Yeah, like
than
pandering to the base.
yeah than actually like do anything. But yeah, I think it should be up to the college.
Yeah. Plus, I think it also it is part of a larger point of like how much influence should elected officials have on the education system if they're not like professional
Yeah,
educators. I think this also applies to school boards and like how parents who aren't trained educators, they're not teachers, but they want to come in and impose their own beliefs and values on what they think all children should be learning. Rather than like, I think it's fine to take charge of your own child's education and supplement their education or pull them out of schools entirely or go to a charter school if you think that's what's best for them. But I hesitate when like elected officials and parents want to override what professional educators have to say about education. And I think this is probably a step in the wrong direction for the Texas State Legislature when it comes to policing what goes on campus.
yeah, I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
I guess moving on to the next topic.
Mm-hmm.
So yesterday there was a protest
Mm-hmm.
to this event called the Israeli Bloc Party. The Israel Bloc Party is hosted by I think Texas Hillel,
Mm-hmm. And some other orgs
yeah,
as
and some
well.
other orgs. And it's like a tent that has a bunch of booths and like food and whatever, all
Mm-hmm.
related to Israel. And then they usually they have this event usually every year,
Mm-hmm.
and then they have protests like from Palestinian side, and like this year's protest was especially like eventful or like vigorous
Mm-hmm.
because of the Hamas, like what's happening in Hamas, right? Or I mean in Gaza right now.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so we both took the opportunity to talk to people on all the sides of that conflict and of that event, and we met a lot of interesting people. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there was one guy who said that he survived October 7th.
Mm-hmm.
There's another Jewish guy who he was like he's an anti-Zionist Jew, so he's like a Jewish person who is against the state of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And then like there are like a couple of individual people like this where they held up a sign
Mm-hmm.
and people were around them talking to them. So I took the time to like go and listen and hear what they had to say,
Mm-hmm.
and it was interesting. And then the actual Israel Bloc Party, that they had like all these booths, so they had like information booths, I guess, and like they
Mm-hmm.
would give their perspective. Like they had these slideshows, and they would give their perspective on their history, with
Mm-hmm.
relation to the region and the war and stuff. And then on the protest side, they had like a bunch of protesters with the ceasefire sign, and they had their bulletin boards with like their
Mm-hmm.
history, and behind those bulletin boards, they had a bit more of what they had to say. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I found it interesting. I think it's cool. Even if you're pro-Israel or if you're pro-Palestine, I think it's cool to see uh, like this amount of political vigor on campus.
Mm-hmm.
Like yeah, when you have an event like this, you're forced to like take a look at it. Like even if you're just walking by and think about it, even just for the moment that you
Mm-hmm.
look at it.
Yeah, especially because they
So
were like blockading Speedway, like or like the Palestinian protesters were like standing across Speedway,
yeah,
so you were forced to see them no matter
yeah,
where you were on campus. And I think just by being there, they encourage political dialogue, which
mm-hmm.
I think it's important to foster on campus, no matter what side of the aisle you're on. And I
Mm-hmm.
really want to commend like the people that we were talking to, because and like the groups that I saw that were talking, because it didn't seem like there were any like major like violent disagreements. Like people were taking the time to listen to each other, to understand each other. I think that's a really good thing to encourage on campus.
Yeah, and there was also a lot of people from both sides who like took the time to speak to the people who had those signs. So whether it was that guy who said he survived October 7th, whether it was the anti-Zionist Jew person that was there, and I think there were other Jewish people who were anti-Zionists who were part of the protest, the Palestinian protest. So I think it's important. Like at the end of the day, oh, there was also, I forgot to mention, there was this group I saw it on Reddit, and I saw them in person, but there was a Palestinian and a Jew, and they had like a table together, and they were like, you can ask us any questions about Israel Palestine, and they both would give their individual takes and answers. I thought that was great. Like I do think like this conflict, it's so long and it's so like divisive, but at the end of the day, like the only way you can accomplish like a stop in the fighting and like the divisiveness is to have both sides talk to each other, because like any ceasefire, any type of mediation requires like one party to concede something and another party to concede another thing, right? So I think the more that we have events like this, the more people will realize that it's good to engage with other people, the people on the other side, and by doing that you can pull them towards your side if you have the good arguments.
Or you can find some way to like connect with them on a person to person basis and make it not about like my side versus your side, but this is a problem that has been put upon us by the people who came before us that we need to both work together to solve. Because of course the people we can blame most for Israel Palestine are the British people, just like in every major conflict probably. They messed up the Middle East when they withdrew from it and put these lines in place that didn't take into account the realities on the ground, and whatever their motives were, we are stuck with their choices and the other people in the past choices, including the leaders of Israel and Palestine in the past. And I think that by focusing on history so much, we need to remember that like what happened in the past is important, but it's not as relevant as I think most people want it to be to what's going on now. Because I think it's morphed into a bigger problem or a different problem.
Yeah, like something that's really interesting to me is like I've had a lot of friends who are Jewish, or other friends who are like Palestinian or pro-Palestinian, and like I've heard the perspectives of both these sides probably pretty equally, and I think one thing you realize is like the Jewish perspective and like the Palestinian perspective of like the events of Israel, like from like, assuming the Jewish person is like pro, is like a Zionist or pro-Israel, which I think most of them are. Like the way that they describe history, at least from how I've seen, is like they're like very different, right? So like there'll be the same event, and like this person will describe it in a way that like how it impacted them, how it impacted their people, how it impacted their communities, and how they had to react to it. And then the exact same conflict, you could hear from the Palestinian perspective or the Jewish perspective, and they'll describe it in a completely different way, right? So like just given the reality of like these two facts, like the only way to reconcile these differences is to come together and like have some kind of discourse, right? So yeah,
I guess we can move on to the last topic that we have today, which is the Florida Abortion Supreme Court ruling, which the Florida Supreme Court obviously ruled that abortion is no longer protected in Florida, but they also gave an allowance for there to be a ballot measure about this specific topic, which based on other Republican states, I think that this will be protected in the state of Florida. And I think this might backfire on the state Republicans because it'll convince more people to go to the polls and vote Democrat.
Yeah, that's true for sure. We don't really even need to talk about the ballot measure because every Republican state, even like the most deep red states that have been polled on having abortion rights back, they voted for it, right? So like if a deep red state is going to do it, a state like Florida, it's going to do it, obviously.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and then involving the ban, I guess the Supreme Court of Florida, I think the reasoning they gave was like the same reasoning as Supreme Court. So like the Supreme Court of Florida actually had the right of abortion enshrined in the past for the privacy clause reason, because the Supreme Court thing also did that, right? The federal Supreme Court. And then
Can you explain the privacy clause for some of our listeners?
um, I'm not fully familiar with it, but in the Constitution, there's like you're given a right to privacy. So like on that pretense, I think that the Supreme Court during Roe v. Wade ruled that like you have an abortion, you have the right to an abortion. You have they made the trimester system, and then they have the right to abortion on like the first semester. Second trimester is up to the states. Third trimester, maybe is it banned? I don't remember. I don't remember. I didn't have to read up on the abortion stuff again, but they had made up that system, and they created the privacy clause because like it's something to do with like in the beginning of your pregnancy, and like like your privacy as like a woman.
Yeah. The right to your own body. Stuff like that.
But yeah, they basically they use the same reasoning as the Supreme Court of the United States to limit abortion to the 6-week mark, or in Florida, and people say this is important because a lot of red states use Florida as refuge to get abortions. So like all the states around it, like Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, you know. So that's an important issue. And yeah.
What do you think about the Ron DeSantis banning like social media for 14-year-olds?
I support that actually. I think it's pretty good. I don't really agree with like the left wing criticism of that, and I think it's kind of hypocritical. Like if Gavin Newsom passed the same thing, it would probably be considered like some like super progressive victory.
I didn't know there was criticism of it. What are they saying?
Like people online and like people on the left were criticizing it as like too draconian. Like because I think for a certain like 14-year-old they're banning it, right? They're not. It's not saying that your parents can consent to you using social media. It's a ban on social media at 14, and then 14 to 16 or something. Your account has to have parental consent, I believe. And actually, the first bill that was proposed for this, it was 16 and under ban. And then Ron DeSantis vetoed it, like he didn't sign it because he thought it was too like draconian. So they reduced it down to the 14-year-old age. And I mean, it sounds overwhelming, or like it sounds super draconian when you think about it in a vacuum. But you know, we ban alcohol, we ban drugs, we ban like there are certain energy drinks that it says 18 plus on it. There's movies that you can't go into at a certain age or below,
like
right?
radar, or NC.
So like social media, it is a drug, right? Like it more or less is, right? Because it does something in your brain. You like it, so you put the phone down. You want that thing in your brain to happen again, so you pick up the phone. You know,
right? And like the people who run social media are like their whole job is to get you hooked and to keep using the app and stuff.
So like, is a young person's brain equipped to use social media? Probably not, right? And like I guess like you can't group all social media in the same. Like for me personally, at least, my parents never cared what social media I had on my phone, because they didn't think it was a big deal at the time, you know, whatever. So like I got Instagram in like 9th grade, I think, and then in middle school I used Snapchat, and so like I think there's a big difference between Snapchat and Instagram, right?
Yeah,
because Snapchat you're just using it to like send streaks,
it's just like a more advanced like texting app.
Yeah. So like, do I think Snapchat should be banned for people who are under 14? No, I don't think so. I think Snapchat news is horrendous. Like that if you go to that news section, it's like I've never seen like a real article on that. It's like fake news. It's like random bait and like just baiting you to click the article and stuff. So like maybe that stuff should be curtailed, but you know, just the concept of Snapchat is fine. Instagram though, yeah, I agree with that ban. Instagram, TikTok, stuff like that.
What do you think about like the criticism that banning, this was more in reference to the TikTok ban, but like that, like restricting access to social media, like prevents like people from like learning more about social movements or like participating in social movements and stuff like that.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think so. Like people did it before. So people did it before 2010, right? Like, they had social movements. They had progress for a lot of things. And like it's not like you're not online. Like I'm sure you can still access. You know, you can probably access war sites online still legally as a 14-year-old online. You can access Reddit. They have a lot of social movements.
Wait, Reddit's not banned?
I don't think so. Is Reddit considered part of like this group of social media stuff? I don't know.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to do more.
I mean, you can still text people. You can still. I mean, it's not like the biggest deal in the world, right? So I'm sure you can, and it's only people under 14. Like do people 14 and under really have like important takes on social movements and stuff? I mean, it's a bit dismissive, but they can't vote, right? That also that hampers their ability to impact social movements, right? So, but we don't complain about that hampering, so this one should be fine.
Should we lower the voting age then?
No, it's good enough. It's good where it is.
I think you should raise it actually.
To what, 21?
Yeah, 21. Everything should begin when you're 21.
I think everything should begin when you're 18. Actually, we should lower the drinking age to 18, like all the other countries.
Owning a gun.
Like we have too many steps, right? So you're 16, you can drive. You're 18, you can, you're an adult and you can vote.
And you can join the military.
Yeah, you can join the military. You're 21, you can, what's it called? You can drink. There's probably certain guns that you can't buy under 21. That's probably maybe fine, maybe not. And then like we have like all these marks, right?
Yeah.
So are you an adult? Are you not an adult? Make up your mind. Yeah.
But I think that's all we have to say today. Thank you for listening to this podcast.
Yes, thank you, and we will see you next week.
For sure.